Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. More, hate less, read comics. It's Blake's Buzz Live.
Buzz, buzz, babies.
Buzz, buzz, babies. We are live in it's Wednesday Night Live, ladies and gentlemen, and I've got some wonderful people with me tonight. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Oh, I am so excited. Thanks for having me. Right? I'm here for you guys. Thanks for putting up with my bullshit. Is what
I heard from Travis yesterday. It's like back-to-back Cthulhu's for you, right? Like,
oh my god, yes. And I got lit up last night. We all everybody showed up early and we were hanging out and I was having a cocktail. Well, it was like my second cocktail, but everybody was like, "Oh, we're drinking." I was like, "Oh, we're drinking," and then we started drinking 30 minutes before the show started, and then I think by the time Travis was a little late, so by the time Travis came in, a few of us were kind of lit and having fun. But no, yeah, it's dude, that was crazy. That was there was 8. He brought 8 people to the interview last night, and it wasn't a clusterfuck. I really thought it was going to be a clusterfuck, and it wasn't. Everybody, we had the screen time was shared, and everything was fun, and it was good. It was good stuff. By the way, I don't know if you guys noticed I have a filthy mouth, so say what you want. Just don't get us canceled. We'll ride the line. But anyways, this isn't a kid's show. It's late night. We're having fun. Some of us are having drinks, and I guess we'll go around and we'll just we'll introduce everyone, and I'm going to go in the order I have, which I always remind everybody that no preference. This is the StreamYard order that Blake has nothing to do with. Christian, Gossett, Vila, you are the first person on my screen. How are you doing, sir? You have a beautiful home. You have a beautiful spinner rack. You have gorgeous flowing hair. What are you even doing in comics? You should be in commercials or doing something else, man. What the fuck are you doing?
It's funny you say that, Blake, because no, just kidding. Yeah,
I feel like this is one of the approved looks for comic people, though.
It's so true. It's so true. I never realized that I was going to fall into this kind of archetype, but here I am. Thanks, Corona.
You just got you're a Marvelite now too, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm having a great time as a story artist on a Marvel show for Disney Plus.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's great.
That's awesome. Disney Plus has done a lot of things for me, mainly cost me money. It's just I've told people because of Disney Plus and Star Wars, I've found a new I've been reignited in my Star Wars love, and on top of all the new wonderful High Republic stuff, I'm just really into it, and they just keep pumping out the jams, and I keep pre-ordering the books. I can't stop. It's good stuff.
Yeah, man. All
right. Well, hey, happy to have you.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for cleaning up your house before. No one lives like that. I refuse to believe that that's like that all the time. That's crazy.
I believe Chris keeps it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe Christian keeps it like that, but I do believe Chris keeps it like that.
Yes.
Well, I guess we all need a Chris. Our Blake needs a Chris. Basically, I was talking earlier because Christian was the first one to show up, and I was like, man, I have boxes and shit behind me, and unfinished walls, and I was I have to turn my lights off and just light my room up with the ring light so that you guys don't see the pile of madness I live in. It's not garbage. It's just I just have stacks of comic books and graphic novels everywhere, and anyway, I'm basically I'm a nerd hoarder. It's fine. We're here. It's all
totally
good.
Fine. Totally fine.
All right. Next up, I believe we've got Mr. Russell.
Hi,
how's-
I'm Russell. I edited this thing with Chris. The house that Christian is squatting in for this interview. So like that's how I know it's pretty much gotta always be like that because like I've worked with Chris now for a long time.
Chris, I'm the editor of Cthulhu is Hard to Spell.
Yes.
That's all. Hey, editors are important, especially for anthologies.
So
Shout out to
important.
the Promiscuous Time Traveler, who's I think might be my biggest fan, and it's awesome. I like. He just says stuff that makes me feel good, and he really likes the show, and he's always here. We appreciate you, Mr. Time Traveler.
It's got a cool handle.
He's got the coolest handle. It's aggravating. Like where was that when I came up with Blake's Buzz? Like fuck. God.
Yeah. Well, what's nice
2020, right?
Yeah. I mean, what's nice about this is it says better, which means it's better than last night's show already, which is really important to me. Like just to be scotch better than Travis's live.
Well, we didn't live stream it. That's a so like you guys you're already a different animal. Travis's hasn't even aired yet. No one even knows about it. Well, I screenshotted the chat, but they'll release Wednesday. So you are technically under the guise of the Dark Lords, my first Cthulhu endeavor because no one else has seen it yet. So this is our first tentacle jam, guys.
Nice.
And we're gonna rock out hard.
Do not go and Google tentacle jam. I don't high probability or not great returns.
Or is it like the best returns?
I mean, yeah, it's
I guess that all depends on your point of view.
Depends on what you're into, right? And no shame at Blake's Buzz. Like, if you're into tentacle parties, like just come hang out. We won't talk about it tomorrow. Anyways, Jessica, hi, Jessica.
Hello.
Thank you for attending.
Of course.
Oh, well, of course. Like
Well,
she knows me. She's gonna regret saying that later. She's gonna be like, "Oh, I should have never done this." Fuck.
Yeah, no. And full disclosure, I'm in my daughter's room. It's the fanciest room in the house. So.
Oh. Well, hey, it worked. I like the curtains. I like the backdrop. I dig the vibe.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for writing a cool ass story in Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, Volume 3. Which all of you did. I did some research, but not a lot of research. Like I don't want to like impress you too much, but like I did very much like everybody's stories that was here tonight, and I'm excited to talk about. I'm just always excited to talk about storytellers because I just it's hard. It's hard out there to put your heart on a page and let it happen. And
no, that's true. That's true. And well, I'm Jessica, and I do kind of sci-fi, horror, all kinds of stuff like that. And I have been in the Cthulhu, the last anthology, and then this one I got to work with this amazing artist. I worked with an amazing artist last time, but this new artist I hadn't worked with before, Anna Weisschek. And if you think Cthulhu is hard to spell, try to spell that.
It is real hard.
Intense.
Yes.
I spent a long time going back and forth, making sure I got it right from the page to the act, and I'm still not sure.
No, she's worth it. Like, you should hear me before I come on these things. I say her name over and over again. I'm like, don't mess it up. I know I shouldn't admit that, but I do.
I did a podcast with Porn Snack Pichoche, and he did the Good Asian, and he did Infidel, and he laughed at me, and I deserved to be laughed at because before we we were recording, but it was a podcast, right? So I could edit it, and I was like 3 times I was like in the intro I was like, hey, buzz babies, I was like, oh wait, wait, one more time, say your name one more time. And I was like, I'm sorry, man, and he was just laughing. But yeah, no, I get it. Like it's but it's better to ask questions than to just say it like an asshole. And next up, Holly. Hi.
Hello.
How's it going? Thanks for hanging out tonight.
I have a plain wall behind me, as you can see.
Hey, it's cool. I have garbage behind me. It's fine. It's not garbage. It's Amazon delivery boxes. It's not. Tomorrow's trash day. So tomorrow's recycling day. So I got to get rid of this stuff. But hey, thanks for hanging out. Excited to have you. I don't know how Russell tricked all you guys into coming on tonight, but we'll, hopefully it pays out, regardless of what happens.
And I may have to mute periodically throughout the show because my dog is obnoxious. And
I thought as long as it's not me that's obnoxious, yeah, mute all day. Like
it's my dog. He has no manners.
Oh no, yeah, I have old dogs so they nap a lot, but yeah, I get it. I'm here for the dogs. Anything you need to do for them, Blake's Buzz supports. We're a puppy. We're pro puppy here, basically.
Yeah, what kind of dog?
That's how that is.
Ollie?
Excellent. He's half pug, half wiener dog.
Oh, so he's like tiny and weird. That's amazing.
No, he's not tiny. That's the weird thing.
Not?
He's like a genetic mutation. He's like 35 pounds.
Oh wow, I thought you were about to say like he's like 115 pounds. I was like, that makes no sense.
No, that would be a No, he's big and yeah, I don't know how he got big.
Yeah, 35 pounds is big for both of those breeds.
Yeah, he's got long legs and he's long like a wiener and he's got a little pug black nose, but it's very strange. Oh, that's I would show you if he were not on my really ugly unmade bed right now.
I'm excited. I hope he like jumps on your lap or something because I'm excited to see this mutant dog. Like it sounds amazing. And last but definitely not least, Mr. Timothy Fling. Man, I'm excited to talk about your story, bud. Like that was a clusterfuck in my mind. Like, God damn. Anyway, I'm sorry, guys. I have a filthy mouth. Anyways, I'm
glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked it.
No, it's good. I liked this. The Cthulhu is hard to spell. Anthology is just fun, and I loved. And I think we have a good mix of the different kinds of stories that are in this new anthology. That's going to be fun to talk about. It gets dark, it gets light, it gets funny, it gets scary. The wild amount of art that is juxtaposed against all your guys' wonderful scripts and storytelling is just really cool. Like, good for you guys, basically. Like,
thanks, man. That's awesome. Blake, I got to tell you, I'm really excited to be here. And man, it's just been a thrill to work with Russell on this. And we're very proud of the way the short story came out. I'm Timothy Fling. I'm a writer from York, Pennsylvania, primarily a sci-fi guy. But we went into this assignment particularly with the intention that we were trying to get into anthologies. And it was a project that we worked on early in the year. And I was very satisfied with the way it came out. And the whole thing's been, just terrific success. When I saw some of the other people in the book, I was like, holy mackerel, the level of talent in this room. I was blown away by it, to be honest with you. But so I just want to say thanks for having me on. And I appreciate the support that everyone's given. I'm really grateful for the whole thing, everybody.
Yeah, it's well, obviously it's doing well. It's funded. Like you guys are halfway,
yeah, it's these crazy numbers.
You guys are halfway through, and you're dragging bags of fucking gold through Kickstarter. So I mean, right? Yeah, it can't get worse, right?
Pretty much how it works. Yeah.
I have to say, I was very surprised. I'm very rarely surprised when it comes to like when we fund. Like we usually fund a book on like the day or within a day of when I estimate that we did it, and like. I don't know what's going on now. I'm very happy that's going very well. But like, yeah, I predicted us not to get here until like the last week. So I'm kind of like, I'm just going to give more books. I'll just give more then. Like you're just going to unlock more bigger book bundles every week then, since we're so far ahead of like the pace that I had set. And I don't have to worry. I can go on my vacation to Austin next week and I don't have to worry about us like not having funded and doing our new our best pitch. So like, yeah, I'm very, very excited that people have responded to this one. And even more so than the last one that we did, which is great.
Well, three is the magic number, right? Like you're on volume 3 now.
Yeah, and I think that I made it very clear that this is it for me. Like, I'm not going to be editing. Chris is not going to be editing any more of these anthologies. Whether another team comes on to edit, I won't say. But like this completes my vision of the trilogy. So I think that definitely helps when you can be like, the series is over. Like, if you want my complete thought, like you can go now. When 2 is a really hard number because like there's almost always the Return of the Empire Strikes Back syndrome, where like people are like, it's not going to be done in 2. So like, I'm going to wait until 3. And like, then I'll just get both of them when I know that there's actually going to be like a complete thought.
Wow. Okay. So this is like it. This is your final gamble. This is the 3 and done.
Yeah. I always imagined book 1 being, planning the invasion, book 2 being invading and taking over, and book 3 being mythological gods and humanity rising up to try and take back their universe. And I am still shocked that you don't often in this life get a chance to fulfill your vision. Like it almost always gets away from you, or something changes in the middle, or you have to abandon a project. So that I get to complete 3 big series this year, Cthulhu, My Gods vs. Chronicles, and Ichabod is really special to me, and I'm enjoying every moment of it, especially now that we have passed the Rubicon and like everyone's going to get paid and books are going to come. Like I'm enjoying this more than I have been for the past month before we that we've been live.
I feel like anthologies are really, I love them and they're awesome, but I feel like they are just wildly stressful for the creators. And you know, the main people, you know, the people fiddling with the puppet strings, you know, behind the madness, because there's so much. There's as the editor and the you know, the main organizer, like, you know, did you take submissions or did you reach out to people?
Yeah, we took submissions and we reached out to people. And the real secret for me, the secret to not freaking out is to make sure you have at least 100 pages of people who have worked with you before and that you know are reliable. So Christian and Jessica were in previous editions of the book. Like I knew Timothy was going to deliver because he's delivered other books, and Holly too. So like, if you have a good base of people that like, you know, we're going to deliver solid stories, solid to amazing stories, like it allows you to take flyers on other people who you may be nebulously believe they are going to deliver, or you don't know, you've never worked with them before. And it's really very, very hard until the submission deadline. And then once you hit the submission deadline, like you have all the pages, and then you just have to kind of like assemble them. So it's like really stressful for submission, for like the submission period, because you never know if you're going to have enough. Then when you have enough, it kind of gets less stressful for a while because everyone's doing their thing. And then like 90% of the artists don't, even if you give them 8 months, like they still only start at the last month. So like you really have like a couple of pages come in and then like a flood of pages come in at the end. So it's very stressful as you're like, oh my God, I've only got 20 pages for this book. Like it's supposed to be a 180 page book. Like what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then like the submission period ends for the pages. And then like, kind of like you breathe because you're like, okay, I got 160 pages that were approved out of 180. Like I've got a book. Or like whatever it is. This one was even higher. We had 193 pages submitted that we approved, that we signed contracts for, and 180 of them came in. So like that's a lot. It's a big old book. And so then it becomes kind of less stressful and more like project management when you're like, okay, how do I fit these in together? And frankly, Chris did that part, so it wasn't like very stressful for me at all this time. I put the first 2 together, and Chris did really did most of the submission and most of the ordering and sequencing for this book. And then it gets very stressful as you're trying to build up to the Kickstarter to launch it until the minute that you tick over funding. So like it's these like multiple very high stress moments that like kind of try your patience in between like a wonderful experience of being able to work with so many awesome creators and being able to be like to geek out when like, you know, Holly used to back when there was a shop called Meltdown in Los Angeles, like she used to manage that shop, and like I like idolized her when I first like got into comics, and so like to work with her was like, and to have her pair with Nick Torres was like amazing, and like to work with Christian multiple times, and Paul Jenkins and Trina Robbins and David Pepos and all of the amazing creators that I've worked with, both like friends and aspirational like creators that I'm like, I never thought I would work with this person ever, is like wonderful. And it kind of balances out. Like those moments of high stress are very, very stressful, but the community and the camaraderie that you build over doing a book, like a well done book that people are going to be proud of, because they're not always like that, is more than equals out. And it gives you this kind of community that you never thought you would have in comics, like that you can rely on and fall back on. And yeah, it's both stressful and great, like all good things.
I almost gave David Pepos shit. I've interviewed him twice now, and I was gonna be like, "Oh, you're not coming on for Cthulhu," but he's like Mr. Marvel now, so like I didn't want to give him shit because I don't want him to like get mad at me. Yeah. Or like save him for the back pocket when I can like interview the new Marvel writer. But no, it's I love that he did a story for this, and I also am kind of a jerk about it, but like I kind of loved the internet drama that blossomed from the David Pepos get. But you are a good curator of talent, and everybody seems to like you, which is good. Like people want to write for you, people want to work for you, people want to do projects with you. So like kudos to you for being like a good person, because those are, in my opinion, few and far between these days. It's like sometimes you gotta like dig through the sand to find the good people that are hanging out in the comic realm. And I do I get it, like, because in my undergrad I was an editor for our college's literary magazine, and it seems like you're like hustling for submissions, right? And then you go from like, I got like 75 pages to read. Yeah, and this wasn't comics, right? So this is like poetry and prose and like photography is what we did in my undergrad. And we have like 75 pages, and we're like, well, we can't say yes to everybody yet, because some of this isn't good. And like, but also we need more than 75 pages. So you're like worried, right? You're like, oh no, like, I need more submissions, and I need to not accept just anything. And then all of a sudden, like a week later, you're like, oh, I have 500 pages of short stories and poetry to read and edit and decide upon, on top of like, day jobs and life and other shit that we all have to do. Right. And so, yeah, like I've been on the editing roundtable, just not for comics. And that's another reason why like my heart goes out to anthologies, because I've been part of like where you are and can kind of understand it. But also I just, it's impressive to me when you all as creatives can do all that you can in a short amount of pages for these anthologies, right? Because like, and I say this all the time, but comic books, if you're writing for an indie comic book, right? Maybe you get like 25, 30 pages, you get a few extra pages, no ads, you don't have to worry about ad space. That's still, when you're writing, that's not a lot of words, right? You got to be careful, and you have to be precise. But you crazy people, you're like, you think like I'm gonna do it in 5 to 8 pages, and I'm gonna build a character arc, and I'm gonna make you feel for my characters, and I'm gonna make you feel different from point A to point B, and I'm gonna do this in just a few pages with my artist, and it's wildly fascinating to me, because the short story is a beautiful thing, but 15 pages of prose, 15 to 30 pages of prose, like you have so much room, you have so much to do. And with a comic script, and when you're working with an artist, you lose so much of that. And you, again, like structure and flow and pacing becomes such a huge deal. And you guys have to tackle that in an anthology, and it's wild, man. It's wild. And then you read it, right? And it blows your mind, because it's just like, It's just like one banger after another, and everything flows, and then you got to decide like where to put them. Like, oh, this one needs to go in the middle. This one needs to go in the end. This, let's finish with this one. Let's start with this one. Like crazy, man. And so it's just comic book anthologies are magical, and I'm really glad I don't have to know how to put them together because it's crazy.
Okay, the mutant dog. I'm really sorry. The mutant dog is getting kicked out because he's whining. But this is the mutant dog.
Oh my god! No! Don't leave him in there. He's fine. He's fine.
Come on. Come on.
Oh, he even cocked his head. That was amazing. We should just end this now. That's it. We're done.
Yeah, that's the high
Cthulhu,
point.
Back Cthulhu's Hard to Spell, Volume 3. Hang out with this puppy. We're done. No, I'm kidding. But now, again, like, hats off to everybody for just being too damn talented.
Well, what's really cool is I think each of the stories that are in the book that are here, that are represented tonight are very different. You had mentioned in like the tone and style and how I know that they work to put the stories together. So yeah, it'd be interesting because I've never done this is my first panel with all writers from the book. I usually have artists and writers on, and while Christian did write and draw the piece, like this is like all writers who are here and can definitely speak to like how to do it well, because it's a skill. Like I could not write short for a very, very, very long time. I don't know if you can tell, but like I like to talk. And I like stories
God.
Also.
Like someone's got to talk on these things, baby. Like I'm glad.
Yeah, I know, right? So like I know how to write long, and like it took basically a whole career and editing multiple anthologies to like learn how to write short and tell a story in like a concise story that both hits home and like tells a point and has a stinger and has a beginning, middle, and end. And like, it's very hard to do in 1 pages. It's very hard to do in 8 pages. It's very hard to do in 20 pages. And each of them is sort of a different skill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in what David has to say too, because there's definitely something on the wall laid out, some kind of secret story behind Christian. Can we enhance? Can we enhance and zoom? Does StreamYard do this? Can we?
Look at that. That's actually the continuation of the story that is in the anthology.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Are you gonna?
that is cool.
What are you gonna do with it?
That is, I want to do a webtoon with it. I fell in love with the story, and so Chris and I have started. I start writing all these Diary of a Madman notes on my phone. Literally, I put them in the memo app, and then I fling them off to Chris, and that's most of them up there on the wall. And I just fell in love with the story. It was very personal, and I wanted to keep it going. So that's it in progress. Cool.
Yeah, no, it was fun. That was a fun read. I love cults, and maybe it's because I was raised Catholic. We can dive into that later, but that's just like, but I just like religious cult horror sci-fi. I've told this story many times. My father let me watch the original Alien movie when I was too young, and I had like waking, screaming nightmares. And
my dad did that with Jaws.
Yeah, right. Like, so yeah, that's it like fucks us up a little bit, but then later like makes us stronger. Like, I think my mom was about ready to leave him because she was like, I haven't slept in a week because you let your son watch this fucking movie. And like, I kind of like remember these snippets like of this argument that happened between my parents when I was a kid. And, but yeah, he let me watch Alien. He took me to see Fire in the Sky when I was really young. And I used to think Aliens.
I remember that.
Dude, I swore like grade school me, like aliens were going to take me, manipulate me, poke me with a bunch of weird shit, leave me in their space. Like, dude, at night, like when it was dark and like cars drove by and the lights like went through the blinds, like I always thought it was a UFO. I used to watch that show Sightings and just like, this is going to happen to me. It's going to happen.
I think it might have it did happen, didn't it?
Maybe it did. Yeah. I just, that's why, right?
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
get like the dreams. The dreams are the proof. Like you don't technically remember it because of the alien drugs.
This is like a
also,
Dark City.
where are the alien drugs? Like I need the alien drugs.
All those Amazon boxes are just cover for the fact that he's on a UFO right now.
Yeah. Oh. That's why my internet connection's so good.
Yeah.
It's not Google, it's the aliens. No, I wish. Because I feel like if they took you away, like I wouldn't have to pay like my private student loan money anymore. I feel like that's right. Like probing is like once you start getting probed and dissected and put back together and studied, then like
I mean, it depends on the order those things happen to you, whether or not you'll qualify for loan forgiveness. But...
Okay.
It's very a lot of paperwork.
The probes
I can't even win there. It's always something. Damn. Oh man. So I guess this would be a good time, or I don't know if it's ever a good time. How and where and why is everybody's Eldritch fascination? Like I coming off of like, my dad let me watch scary movies maybe when he shouldn't have, and it definitely impacted the nerd that I am now. But like, all you guys, like let's like where does your horror sci-fi fascination begin? I want some good origin stories, and if they're not good, lie. And Jessica, since you seem to know the most about the alien the obtrusive alien study factor and how that applies to loan forgiveness, I feel like you've got like an upper echelon of knowledge here. So let's start with you. Like, where does your fascination begin in all this weirdness?
Well, I would probably say my fascination with sci-fi horror probably starts with King Kong. I had the waking screaming dreams when I watched the 1922 King Kong with my dad too young. So I had that same experience. And then I watched Alien too young with my mom, but I liked that. So I was okay. But I watched every single weird half-hour show I could find on TV that was horror, aliens, old black and white stuff. I was always been into it, all that pulpy television. And then comics and stuff, as far as Eldritch, I would say that, like the really dark horror that I got into was the first couple, movies or anything like that would have been, like, if to tie into Lovecraft at all, would have been like Evil Dead series and Mouth of Madness. They both felt very Lovecraftian to me. As far as books go, I mean, I read everything. So, every kind of horror, sci-fi. I mean, as far as sci-fi, Ursula Le Guin got me into it, but she's more like real life horror than, dark old god horror. But yeah, I love all of it. So, I would say that's it. And maybe I
think it comes through in your storytelling. Also, shout out to fucking Ibrahim Mustafa's watching my live stream. Like, how the fuck? Who am I? What is happening? This is crazy. Hey. Wow. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna hide his comment before I say something silly.
I will say that before Jessica was in the book, she was a huge fan of the anthologies, and so she's literally, when I thought about making the second volume of this book, like one of the people that I thought about, because she came to our table with her kids after reading the monster book. And the kids were so excited, and I was so embarrassed because the book says like shit in the title, and like I was like, I gotta have something for these fucking kids that like and they were very young at the time, like they were like 5 years younger than they are now, and they were reading this like book that was full of like violence and a beer monster committing suicide, and like there's a very dark book.
And my kids also like dark. I like to make them scream in the middle of the night, I guess, too. So I'm a little my dad, but yeah.
Hey, it worked out for me. Like, I went to college. I have a full-time job. I ended up okay. So hopefully your kid. I feel like putting your kids through the ringer with some weird shit's good. Like,
no, but it's good not to have
protecting those little weirdos. Like, let them have some fun and show them some weird shit. I'm down with it.
Well, I mean, I think it's a proof that children search out darkness. We try to sugarcoat things, and they search out the creepy stories on their own. I know when I went to the library and I was young, that would be the first section I would go to, like horror. I'm like, let me read something that I don't hear about at school. And I noticed that with my own daughters too. And if you watch, the fact that Stranger Things and shows like that are so popular, that children like to be scared. It's fun. It gives them that adrenaline rush. They're not like jumping on airplanes right now and everything. So, I don't know. So
well, I was talking to Aaron Alexevich, the cover artist, and he said like he's kind of a scaredy cat, or he was when he was a kid, and he's like it like horror let me deal with my fear in a safe environment,
yes,
where like I knew nothing could actually hurt me, and I think that a lot of children, a lot of adults as well, like have that same relationship with horror, where they enjoy the feeling that experience, and like being able to work on those issues in a place that like they absolutely can't get hurt except like in their own mind. Holly's also got a very cool story about this. So Holly, you wanna give your answer?
About how I got into horror, or just, I mean, there's so much. I went through phases. I was a huge reader when I was a kid. I still am just a book nerd. I think it was maybe Alvin Schwartz's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark that originally sort of kicked it off.
Nice.
But then I just became obsessed with werewolves, like completely obsessed. Still am. Like I would create like fake escape plans in my head as like a kid, like for when a werewolf would attack. I'd be like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get out the window like this.
You got the werewolf going right now. It's like
so yeah, it was werewolves, and then when I was about 10 or 11, my family started doing this thing where on Thanksgiving weekend we had 5 nights off of school, and so and my dad was really the encourager of this, but there were 5 members of my family, and so each one of us, we would go to Blockbuster. Yes, I'm old. Each one of us would go to Blockbuster, and we each get to pick out one horror movie to watch over those 5 nights. And wow. we watched things like Tremors and Invasion, the 70s Invasion of the Body Snatchers freaked the shit out of me. Sure. That stuff was terrifying. And then later on in high school, I got kind of goth with vampires and stuff. So I don't know, I just went through like all these phases. But I was fortunate enough 10 years ago to get on board the famous Monsters of Filmland train. I was hired as a copy editor, and I ended up as the executive editor. I worked for them for almost 10 years. And so that was really where I got to like nurture my horror obsession and like just cultivate it with all of these, interviewing all these amazing people and just writing about stuff that I'd seen but maybe hadn't appreciated as much. And now I just have a newfound appreciation for all horror history, everything, all of it. And I know way too much about it. I know way too much about Godzilla and monsters, and it's kind of scary. But yeah, this stuff is pretty much my life.
What you just said that reminds me of true horror was, so my first job was at Blockbuster. It was my first real job in high school, and VHSs were still out, right? And no one was kind and rewound. No one did it. And so like a part of the hell of my work day was like we had like a line of those like little, they're not VCRs, but they're just like little tape rewinders, and I had to like put all these fucking tapes into these and like put them into the speed rewinders and then put them back in the case, and then you had to put them on the wall and alphabetize them, and so like I'm working at Blockbuster when like DVDs are coming out, right? And I remember my store manager was like, these aren't gonna last, and like she was like totally against this idea of DVDs, but regardless, like, so the DVDs are coming out. I'm working at Blockbuster, and one of my all-time favorite movies that I stumbled across, because we got 5 free rentals a week, right? And eventually like you run out of shit to watch, because like you get the new movies before they come out, they send them early, and then like you're just kind of wandering around the store like picking up random shit, and like I'm gonna watch this tonight. And Dog Soldiers.
Oh my
God! Picked up Dog Soldiers, and it's the best werewolf movie ever.
I agree with that. It is the best werewolf movie ever.
Well, you guys are my friends now. We're friends. But this is the Step Brothers part. Did we just become best friends? Yes. This is our Velociraptor moment. This just happened. But yeah, like that movie blew my fucking mind, and it's so good, and I love that it's become this like now that I'm older, it's become this cult classic, and I see like, you know, younger people like finding it, and it got a 4K Blu-ray release, and I'm like, oh my God, like I almost bought a 4K Blu-ray player just to buy this stupid Blu-ray. But yeah, anyways, like, so yeah, because of that now, like I am in love with werewolves, and we'll die with that furry, with that, you know, frisky, furry, frolicky fun. Oh wow, let's just
What's so great about Dog Soldiers
lame
too? Like there's so many movies that just do werewolves wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Like, you're just like, no, that's not a werewolf. That's like a rampaging ape dog or something.
Yeah.
Like,
who knew, like, to combine them with a military exercise, you know, like overseas and in a cabin in the woods, and like all these like kind of horror tropes that it like mixes all these things together so wonderfully. No, yeah. So anyways, werewolves are awesome, and you guys are awesome for appreciating that, and that's so cool. Thanks for reminding me of the both worst and best job ever.
I am like just thinking about going to watch Dog Soldiers right now because I have the DVD, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm gonna watch that tonight again.
Right? Yeah. Let's just,
I never get sick.
We got a good 40 minutes in. Let's just all get the fuck out. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, Timothy, you didn't get to say anything, but we're just gonna go watch Dog Soldiers. Speaking of that, Tim, let's hop over to you, Mr. Fling. You have a different, very different, very heavily sci-fi, sci-fi and apocalyptic short story in this anthology, which is so unique, and I love the darkness of it, where like humanity's done, and
blah, blah, blah. We're not going to spoil it. It's a very good story. Please don't spoil it.
Yeah. So
I was wondering.
Like, it's a post-apocalyptic greatness, and it's interesting and amazing. And
I'll give you the non-spoilerish description, because like
I've been on a lot of these with him, and I've been like, do not spoil your story.
Yeah, Russell gave me very, very strict instructions, right? It is a 1970s retro sci-fi take on a Lovecraftian tale in which 3 mysterious monks summon an unspeakable monster. And it's sort of told within the framing of, like, it sort of fits into that, you know, sort of a retro sci-fi kind of feel. And if you like those kind of old movies, the layouts are even a little bit, it even looks kind of like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we had a great fun making it. And there was, you know, there's even like a certain kind of dialogue that the monks use. And it was a blast. And for the monster that we chose, which, you know, most of the monsters are public domain anyway for Lovecraft. So it was really kind of a generic monster. But, you know, we chose to have the female, you know, the monstress. And on the first pass, of course, she was a little too.
Yeah, she was naked. It was monster naked, but
right.
And I was like, you can't.
Right. She was a little voluptuous.
I have all of the voluptuous part was not. She was just flat naked. We had a problem in the previous volume where Nick Doan's story was doing a Shub Niggurath story of like her forcing men to give birth to her babies, and also naked. And I was like, look, homie, I don't care that they're naked. I on principle, like, this is an all ages book. I can't.
Right. Oh yeah. I get why
this happened.
Of course.
I can't believe that in 3 volumes we've had it's like 4 stories where like nudity was a problem. We also had one story this time where someone blew a kid's head off, and I was like, you can't. This is an all ages book. Like, I'm not saying
there is
like,
a line. There is a line.
There's a line, and I skirt that line, but
we almost crossed it with Pickman's Rescue, didn't we, with the last panel?
Yeah, there's definitely some mutilation in Pickman's Rescue.
Yeah, so I had a long think on your story, but I decided because they were happy, it was okay. Like, they were happy about it.
Happy about being mutilated.
Yes.
Well, I couldn't spoil too many of the details of the story, as we said, but I will just toss in a couple of the influences. I really want to mention them because it's so similar kind of to what Jessica said, and Holly also. So I just wanted to mention, I was also in the, my first big one was Stephen King. And I remember when he just changed the face of what horror writing was. And there was The Stand, and for me, even Salem's Lot, which I don't know if there's any Salem's Lot fans out there, which had a terrific miniseries that was on TV, which was super scary to that age group. And that was kind of where I learned the rhythm of the writing, right? And then after that, I sort of stumbled into the sci-fi, and that would have been things along the lines of the Ray Bradbury, Richard Matheson, you know, these types of stories, and particularly the Rod Serling stuff along the lines of Twilight Zone or Night Gallery. And sometimes people have pointed out to me, I sort of try to write like that a little bit, like sometimes it'll revolve around a twist. And if you've ever read any of the Water Wars stories, you know, oh, that's right, they always kind of have like a little twist at the end or some development, unusual development, let's say. That was the...
For sure. I was just going to say, for sure, your story, Twilight Zone, hits the nail on the head for sure.
Yeah, and you know, I was grateful for the chance to make it too, because I'll tell you, I'm not particularly used to the short form story. Like, to me, they're generally 12 pages, or even some of them been longer than that. So it was a good writing assignment for me. And we even talked about trying to pare it down a little bit, and that's something that I'm trying to improve on as well, because it increases your chances to get into anthologies and that kind of things. But for the rhythmic beats of it, we always kind of joke a little bit. The stories are laid out a little bit like songs, of course, in our case, and that generally works itself out to 8 pages is usually where the drums land.
That's interesting. You bring up songs, because when I was in my MFA creative writing program, I started on the poetry side and I switched to fiction later, and I feel like studying poetry where it's compress, right, and fit so much into one line. Right. And each line has to mean something, and you have no words to waste and no page space to waste. Like, you have to be so precise. And so, like, compression makes better writing. And that's, again, like, to go back to these shorter comic stories where it's like, you have to, shorten yourself and make it into a smaller space, and keep making it smaller, and keep editing it down, and maybe go from, like, if someone's like, okay, this is okay 8 pages, let's take it to 7. You're like, fuck you, buddy. Like,
what I generally do too,
like,
I don't know how necessarily everybody's writing process is, but I generally, it's a visual format that we work in. So I start with the ending and I write it backwards. Like, I try to start with a visual image that's some kind of striking image or emotional image. You basically start with your climax, and then you sort of describe it backwards as to how everyone got there. And you hope that you have enough space to kind of develop the characters in the first couple of pages, because, in a short one, you don't always have time to do that. That's what I would say one of the challenges of the short form is. And like, I generally do chapters for the other stuff, and they tend to hover around probably about 20 pages a chapter. It reminds me of something the one editor said, Matthias, who I work with a lot, and I love him so much. He says, you got to give a little room to let the stories breathe. We like to have a lot of panels where maybe nobody's saying anything and that sort of thing, but that doesn't really lend itself toward this kind of exercise. So I was really glad to take a crack at it, and I'm really glad that you liked it. What sticks it? What made you like it so much?
Well, I'm not allowed to talk about it, apparently.
Well, you don't have to say the ending.
What if that's the one? What if that's the thing?
Well, that's the answer. That's the answer.
Part of the thing.
We can just say easily. Then listen, you don't want to miss it. You got to check out Cthulhu. It's hard to spell. This is the book. You guys got to pledge to it right now.
Yeah, you guys need to buy this shit and get it. No, but it was a great. It was a great twist, and it was a great play on post-apocalyptic lore combined with the old god mentality, and I'll just say the disappointment was fun, right? Not the reader disappointment.
Right. I know what
like
you meant.
The disappointment on the page. Yeah. And again, like, to kind of group you all into this. So, like, horror and sci-fi, as wildly different as they are, which is interesting how in this anthology, like, the old gods and the futuristic notions that you've all blended, which I kind of wasn't really expecting, because it's, Cthulhu has an age to it, right? Like, there's not a lot of modernity in Cthulhu. And I love how you guys switched that up and you made it like pertinent and in the now and a lot of these stories, which was awesome. But so, one of the best things about sci-fi and horror is how you find this universality, right? Like you anchor us into a normative aspect of our everydayness and then like, throw a fucking screwball in there with the weirdness of the horror and the extraness of it all. Jessica and Holly did like almost like animal adoption and a totally new, twisted, weird way, because that's like such a warm, welcoming, holistic experience, right? Like I almost said the store. I'm going to go to the animal clinic and adopt a dog, right? Or adopt a cat. I'm going to give this animal a home that didn't have one. And like we kind of become a hero in that, but also those animals are the fucking heroes because they change our fucking lives. But like you guys had this interesting play with this like found family monster, and both of you did that in two really unique ways, and your artists that you worked with also like juxtapose your stories in really fun ways. And Timothy took our fear of the end of what humanity is going to make of itself and where are we going to be in the future? Because I don't trust humanity to get us anywhere. And Timothy reminded us that they probably won't. Right? And
sorry about that.
Christian, you took the like spectacle and the quest for fame and importance, which I took, which kind of hit heavy with me because like, this whole thing started where I was just like, I just wanted to talk comics with people and have fun. And now like I'm doing these live streams and I'm doing these podcasts and I'm looking at my metrics and I'm like nerding out on like my pop, like, oh, I'm getting more followers and these things are happening. And you pretend you're like, this shit doesn't matter. I'm just in it. I'm just in it cause I fucking love comics. But dude, I'm not going to lie, man. Like it's crazy. Like when people start paying attention to you, it fucking feels good. It's exciting, and you took that and the ease of how easy it is to manipulate people on our own importance and delusion, right? Like you built a story around that, which was really fun. And then Russell, with your 3-part, pay-per-view-esque wrestling match, and you built up this other spectacle that's like our celebration of like Hollywood violence and the excitement of the battle and of the drama, right? Of scripted drama that so many of us are addicted to on TV. So like you all took these really like niche aspects of humanity and added this like eldritch blend to it. And it's like, it's so smart. It was like all of you so fucking smart. And you're so like, you're all super talented and did it really well. And so, yeah, it was just really cool. And everything flowed really well in all your stories and the other stories with the other creators that aren't here right now. But yeah, so this is like a really smart, well-paced, well thought out anthology that as far out as everything is, like really makes you analyze the current humanity, like in our everydayness in the now, which is funny because it's like also like, it's an all ages book, but like it's so heady at the same time. And like Russell, really you're a fucking madman, man. You're crazy.
What's really fun is to have someone like Jessica's kids who like found the Cthulhu books 5 years ago, right? Like at this point, 4 or 5 years ago, and like not just Jessica, but like they like to see children who have read Nathan Luth also is his kid is a big fan, and like to see that they keep picking up the book and they keep loving different stories as they like age and as like their tastes change and as what scares them and what like excites them changes. And like the book really is this weird kind of living organism that I found. It was completely unintentional when we started it, but it was just really, it's been really nice to see people say that like their kid, like, or themselves even, but like it's very apparent with kids because like they'll love one story and then like 6 months later, like it's a completely different story from a completely different reading level based on completely different sources. And that was really important to me as we looked through this whole thing. It was really because like I never like Holly says she is an expert on famous monsters. Like I'm a Lovecraft expert, and like I never intended to be. Like I never intended to like make this to like know as much as Lovecraft. Like he wasn't a huge influence. His writing wasn't a huge influence in my life. The things that he made that then were adopted by other people and remixed was a big part of my life. So like Jacob's Ladder, In the Mouth of Madness, Event Horizon, Are You Afraid of the Dark, like Stephen King books, The Abyss, like, and this is everything from like, yeah, Ghostbusters. This is from everything, like every piece of pop culture he's touched, and all been remixed in some way or another. And so I really wanted this to feel like it's the creators remixing it in different ways. So like Jessica does a like action adventure Lovecraft story, and Holly does like a cute, funny Lovecraft story, and Tim does like a more modern Lovecraft story. Like probably you wouldn't see it in like any Lovecraft magazine, but like if someone did a Lovecraft magazine now, like you could totally see that story. And then Christian's story is very much like the closest I think we've ever come to having something that I think like could have lived in like a Lovecraft anthology timeline. Yeah. And like, I mean, because a lot of the Lovecraft stories we have are like kind of modern takes on Lovecraft, but like Christian's, because it deals with the 1920s, like literally like it could have been in Weird Tales. Like it could have been in one of those pulps. And then mine was just like an over the top Lovecraft story that like, did brought in kayfabe and all of the stuff from wrestling and comics that like, but everyone has the chance to like remix this person's life. And I like Lovecraft is problematic. Like it's just kind of a dick when he lived, and that's being very, very polite about it. Like I'm being very nice to just call him an asshole. But what is amazing about Lovecraft to me is like you don't get people to carry on your legacy. Like it is so hard to find even children or brothers and sisters or wives that will carry on a legacy. And like Lovecraft like died penniless and alone, and like seemingly everyone hated him, except that like the work was carried on in an almost unbroken chain by friends and seemingly random people that Lovecraft connected in his life. And like that is a thing that like is not supposed to happen. I mean, the thing that I worry about of my own life is like who is going to continue on the legacy of my books once I die. And like it's probably going to be no one. Like they'll probably live on Amazon, but like that wasn't possible for Lovecraft. But like he had influenced like Robert E. Howard and enough people, and he befriended editors and who's and like these books just lived on. And I kind of am obsessed with that idea. Like as a writer, it's hard to not be obsessed with an idea of like, how did this guy who is like kind of universally reviled, like as a human, God, how did he make something so enduring that random people, many of whom did not like Lovecraft during his life, how does he make something that carries on in such a way? Mostly because I like care about that for myself. And I think it's such a wonderful case, not even a case study, like it's just a wonderful event that is kind of an anomaly in all of literature. Like there's no religion to carry it on. There's no friend, there's no family. He like divorced his wife and like he's like was a hermit. And somehow this guy, like he didn't even have Emily Dickinson legacy where like her sister found her stuff and like carried it on. It's just an incredible idea. And what I pulled from that is like, I wanted this to feel like people are remixing it and making it their own. Like I wanted it to feel like like how I came to Lovecraft, which was like, I didn't know the Necronomicon was Lovecraft when I like watched Evil Dead. Like I didn't know like just how like Lovecraftian Jacob's Ladder was. Like there were all these pinpoints all over the place. And then I found like the connecting thread of Lovecraft together. And like it made me like obsessed with the mythos part of that. Not so thrilled with the human part of it. But like, I do think in this respect, the fact that his ethos is there's nothing after death, like gods don't care about you, and you should be very scared of that, like influenced everything in his life, every story he wrote, everything that he ever like horribly said was all influenced by this one ethos. And it's very interesting to watch that in contrast to all other mythologies that are either based on a religion or like a weak allegory for a religion, like C.S. Lewis, where like it's clearly like the Matrix is clearly just like the Jesus story and like the Ishtar story and yeah. So you have this person who didn't do that, create his own thing, and somehow it's endured for 100 years. And that the fact that, and the reason that happened is because hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people found Lovecraft and they all like took their own take on it. And that's the kind of underlying ethos for like why this book kind of feels like it does, because I very much wanted people to have their Lovecraft story if that's what they wanted, but also have their cute story of like going to get a Lovecraftian pet, or like finding and saving Lovecraftian monsters, or doing the things that Christian and Tim
e-date to a coffee shop.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's interesting. I'm so glad you brought this up, because I was trying to figure out a not asshole way to transition into that, because I see that because there's so many, there's several Lovecraftian Kickstarters going on right now, and I've seen people be like, how do people still care about this guy? Is a racist asshole? I'm like, yes, but also, it's literature is very much a part of history, right? When you study literature, you study history, and guess what? Like American history isn't great either. Like for us to be here now, like our forefathers did some nasty shit, and so like you got to kind of like take the good with the bad, but to study, when you have these iconic historical figures, right? You still need to learn. You need to learn about them. You need to learn from their mistakes, but you also need to look at things that they did, sort of right. And when he wrote Cthulhu, like he made the mockumentary. We wouldn't have The Office. We wouldn't have Parks and Rec. We wouldn't have all this crazy shit that's so like comical and lighthearted and funny and feel good, right? We wouldn't have any of this without him, which sucks to give him credit. Like sometimes it sucks to give an asshole credit, but like
I always disagree a little bit. Like, yes, he did do it, but if he hadn't done it, someone would have done it, because it's just asking it's the opposite side of that coin. Like, if there is nothing and the gods don't care about you, and that I think is a question everybody somewhere inside of them is asking. Like, is this like Pollyanna version of the afterlife and what we're all doing? Is that, and then so that question's in all of us, and I think that's why he's so like, it's not even him, it's just getting to go in there and think about monsters that really are not unstoppable, and like in a universe that is chaos, basically. I don't know, but I mean, I was playing devil's advocate on that a little bit, but I always think someone would do this. That's why so many people are engaging in it, is because that he kind of just opened the door, and then it was the floodgates, people wanting to explore. But he should get credit for opening the floodgates, I suppose. But I'm sure someone did something like that before him at some point, don't you think?
Sometimes I just still wonder, like the same way that I wonder with like vampire lore and werewolf lore and aliens, like, I'm about to get weird, guys, and I'm sorry, but like all these things that are so ingrained into our culture, right? And it's a story. That's what everyone tells themselves, right? It's a story. It's a ghost story. It's a horror story. It's a science fiction story. But like, we were raised with these weird stories, right? And I always wonder, like, are they like, can they all be fiction? If they've all been around since history, right? And like, and gods, angels, ghosts, vampires, werewolves, aliens, UFOs, old tentacled gods that live in the ocean. Like, is there a tiny chance that, like, what if it wasn't a story? Like, what if they actually just saw something? You know, like, I always wonder that sometimes too. And I guess that's me trying to be excited because, like, it's like when you know, I remember being in Catholic school because I was in private school, right? And so, like, when we talked about aliens and like the teachers were like, well, no, like, there's no aliens, there's God and there's humans and that's it. And it's like, and I remember I don't remember who the comedian was, but they like made this joke and they were like, okay, so like there's this whole universe and it's all lit up and it's endless and there's planets and stars and it goes on forever and it keeps expanding, and like they just made that for us because we're so fucking special, because we're this fucking speck of cosmic dust. And so, yeah, I don't know. Like, sometimes I wonder if these old creatives and these people that started these old fictions and these old fears and these old haunts and lore, like the lore, right? Sometimes I wonder if there's like a meaning behind the madness, maybe.
Yeah, well, we did Monsters and Other Scary Shit before this. That was the first anthology, and like what I think that all of these things, whether it's Lovecraft or vampires or werewolves, like what they provide is a way to explore societal concepts that change over time. And so, like the Dracula who was in the original Dracula is a Dracula that is for that time. Like it deals with societal issues there, and like the Dracula that is like now is a much different Dracula. Like it's
Nick Cage is the new Dracula.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, like Lovecraft kind of fulfills this role too, where like we're remixing him, right? I spent 5 years remixing all of these gods, and the general thing that I have found about Lovecraft is like his ethos is you should be afraid after like I have presented a case and it should make you very afraid. I've always been an absurdist, and so I look at that same body of evidence and go like, that's fucking hilarious. Like that's so like, how do you not see the like humor in like that? There's fucking nothing there and nobody cares about us. Like that's so stupid. Like why even have consciousness if you're just going to rot in the dirt? Like that's so, what an absurd, funny thing. And this third volume really became this struggle between like what wins, fear or hope. Because like you can come at the same body of information in multiple different ways. And like the Lovecraftian gods kind of represent Lovecraft's fear, like the fear of like that there's nothing out there and like you should be very scared of that. And like the other side of that was like the mythological gods and humanity like fighting. Because if you are afraid of everything, like you should not fight. Like there's no point in fighting. Like you should just be afraid. And so the fact that they're fighting back like just shows that like there is hope, and like that hope is a powerful force in and of itself. And it really became this battle, this literal like book became this battle between fear and hope. And like I always tell people, I said in the introduction, I said like this is not probably going to be the Lovecraft book you expect to get right now, but hopefully after the last 2 years it's like the one you need, because it really like I think it comes down strongly on one side of that equation of like what is in the face of overwhelming odds, is fear or hope more powerful? Yeah, Christian, you haven't said anything in a long time. You seem like you wanted to say something before. So
I've just been having a great time listening. You know, I will say that I love the fact that I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to talk about a little bit about what we're talking about before, what Jessica said and what Blake said about, and what you've been talking about how, what is it about Lovecraft that makes him so timeless and universal? And then the second thing I want to do is, in fact, I'm going to do the second thing first, is if there's anybody out there that hasn't bought the book yet, I mentioned this on my Substack, with the Cthulhu Town Substack, but I also want to say it here to anyone who hasn't bought yet. If you donate at the $50 level, you're going to get a box from me. Screen grab your donation, your name, just screen grab it. You given the $50 or higher, and then send it to, find a way to get it to me or Russell. Russell will get it to me. And then you'll get you're going to get a box from me. You're going to get a loot crate from me. It's going to have some original art in it. It's going to have some graphic novels in it. It's going to be really, really worth your while. So now that we've met the goal, I'm very happy about that. And I want to get Russell as much as possible to really send him off strong. You know, he has, I'm very, very grateful that he put together these 3 books, and grateful to Chris for her role in it. And it's been a great time. I've wanted to do a Cthulhu story since I discovered Lovecraft at 16. When I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and my D&D friends were like, "You haven't heard of the Necronomicon?" He told me all about it, and I was hooked, absolutely hooked. I was like, "What do you mean a book that can curse you? What?" And I was hooked, totally hooked. But only now have I been able to tell some stories. So I really want to go beyond the goal. I want to get some pad in there for Russell as gratitude. So please, if you haven't donated yet, if you donated with a $50 level, get a loot crate. Do it now. The second thing I'd like to say is, it's, you know what, for me, I'm fascinated by, and Robert E. Howard does this too. When I found out they were pen pals, it blew my mind because I love the early Conan stuff. I was at a bookstore in Renton, Washington with my brother, and I saw Hour of the Dragon, which is the only novel that Howard was able to get out when he was writing Conan. I started reading it, and that first chapter was incredible. And I was like, this is like Lovecraft. And I didn't know they were pen pals yet. And what they both did, you know, Crom is a god that doesn't care about Conan. You know, I mean, you could see the influences of each other on it. And this metaphor for corruption that the Cthulhu mythos represents is something that we all fear: the corruption of ourselves, corruption of the society in which we live, just corruption of the institutions that are supposed to be there to protect us. Those are issues that we're constantly dealing with, and constantly giving name to and kind of form to. You know, the Greeks looked at the sun and they were like, that must be some dude's chariot. Hey, man, you know, when I look at the sun, I see this really cool chariot, right? It's Apollo. You know, we look at, Lovecraft gives us the opportunity to look at corruption and see it embodied in these horrible, shapeless, timeless forms. And they are horrifying. Corruption is horrifying. Anytime you've ever had to deal with it in your life, in microcosmically or macrocosmically, it's a nightmare beyond description. Which is, again, I just love that about Lovecraft. And that's my TED Talk.
You guys are way too smart for Blake's buzz. I'm just going to throw this out here. Like, guys, I was thinking we were going to get like tentacle weird stuff, and we got like heady into history and culture. And no, but I love that. This is like so wildly fascinating, and I love getting everybody's takes on it. And it's interesting. And again, like, you know, I made the joke of like, you know, what if vampires are real? Because we've talked about them for forever. But like, you know, I don't want to offend anybody, but like, what is religion? What is myth? These are all things that like we grew up in and were societally ingrained with from like the moment we popped out of the womb, or you know, like however we got here. If you know, if you believe in the stork theory and they dropped you off in a nice little hammock and like everything was like clean and not messy or whatever, you know, like, but it's so interesting and scary when you start thinking of gods and these beings that are in so much more control than, because none of us are in control, right? Like we have moments of control. We have good days, right? But we have way more bad days usually. Like life is a struggle. And some of us deal with the struggle better, right? But it's still like we want to be in control and we yearn for control, but rarely are we ever like truly in control of our surroundings. And so to think of like these godheads, whether they have tentacles or angel wings or were born in a manger or whatever you want to think about it, you know, like we'll never achieve that. And so it's interesting, like being a weirdo human and trying to like, you know, put ourselves in existence with these like these otherworldly beings and stuff, and how like a lot of people find comfort in it, and it's great. Like faith does wonderful things, right? But like also like for me, it's terrifying because like I'm like there's this thing that like has decided everything about me that no matter what I do, right, it like knows how I'm gonna end up, and there's just the age of things, these ancestry and where myth comes from, and this idea of like I love this idea of like an old god that like lives in this part of the ocean, and still with all our technology today we don't know what's in the fucking ocean. He could be there. That's what fucking blows my mind, right? Like, we don't know shit. We don't know anything. Like, we can fucking talk about comics in a forum with high definition cameras and good microphones and stream it to the millions that aren't watching this, but we could. If there could be millions watching it, like the technology for stuff is there. We have fucking cars that can drive themselves. We have things to do weird shit with electricity and all this stuff. We still don't know what's in the fucking ocean. So like, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just shit.
No, you're right.
Out.
Yeah, absolutely. And no matter how far we go, there's always going to be something farther away.
Right? Yeah.
No matter how far we go, there's always going to be some place we haven't gone. And that's where Lovecraft comes in.
Yeah. And
put that on a bumper sticker. Holy shit. You guys need that. Make that a t-shirt stretch goal. Like, no matter what you do, you don't know. That's where Lovecraft comes in.
Yeah, but we really took.
Terrifying.
I wouldn't say that Cthulhu was a risky book because like it's Cthulhu and it's Lovecraft. Like it was probably always bound for success. But like there's frighteningly little that we know about the Lovecraftian gods. Like in fairness, like across the entire, like there's so many horror stories. But as far as the mythology part of it, the mythos part of it, really Chaosium, like is like it. Like that's what you get when it comes to the lore, unless you find it inside Lovecraft stories, in which case Lovecraft stories are mostly an undescribable horror, an undescribable color, an undescribable monster, like, and it works, like it's great, but like you don't get a lot of that. And so I really did want to turn the the focus from the horror to the monsters themselves, which is how you can have things like Cthulhu going on a date with a woman, or Ornanumquan marriage counseling, or one of the other many stories that are not Lovecraftian, because we're focused on the part of it that's supposed to drive you mad. And what I kind of came to understand about the series is like it's kind of like a treatise to look at what makes you scared and realize that like it's not so bad, like, or it's probably just probably very similar to something that you deal with, or like these monsters have like very normal lives often in the stories. And I didn't plan, again, this is not a plan for me. The only plan was you have to have a Lovecraft god, and I want to do the Lovecraft god books. And like all of the other stuff that we've talked about tonight is all just like stuff that I learned doing the series. Fans talked about it, or I've had to think about it for 5 years, and like why I keep going back to it. And so yeah, I mean, I think that that's one of the really nice things about this anthology that makes it different is it shines a light on the things we're not supposed to talk about. Sometimes, like in Jessica's story for the last anthology, quite literally, like shines a light on the thing we're not supposed to talk about. But like, we describe all the gods, like they're right there. You can look at them. Like there's no more indescribable gods. Like they all, like you want to see what Azathoth looks like he's right there. Like you want to see what the color the color is, like it's right there. Like all of these things are like now staring you right in the page, and like they're not so scary after all.
I really enjoyed the creative limitation of the all ages aspect. Taking Lovecraft and doing it all ages was something that I really enjoyed. While everyone's here, do you mind Blake, if I ask everyone how they dealt with that, and like, was there anything interesting to them about how they dealt with it?
Yeah, I do mind. I'm supposed to ask the questions.
I apologize.
So everybody, let's talk about the all ages aspect.
What a great
I come
question,
up with
Blake.
the good questions, sir. This is Blake's buzz. It's not Christian's craze. All right, it's Blake's. No, that's a really good question. I'm totally down hearing everybody's answer.
Cheers, man.
I'll go because we touched on it earlier. The one kind of challenge that we had was a somewhat naked female goddess, and how we addressed it was with the creative use of some coloring and effects and like smoke particles and so forth. Because it wasn't necessarily that it was. Well, I mean, it was the right call because she was pretty bodacious in the one panel, but the really the fault was mine because in the script it had some wording to the effect of clearly female form, I think was the way it was worded. And it was clearly a female form, put it that way. So, we had to, like I say, to obscure it a little bit. Right. Well, and it was, everything was in a respectful kind of manner, but of course it's an all ages book. And, they were right because as Americans, sometimes we do have sort of touchy sensibilities about those types of subjects.
Like, I also have a thing about violence. It's not just like the sex thing. Like, I also have the violence and the blood and the cursing thing. Like, it's all of the things together you can't do.
Well, sure. And actually, I'm grateful for that, too, because that was actually, since you asked about the process a little, Christian, that was my first time working with an editor to correct, what was essentially my fault in an oversight on a script that had made it through illustration. So we did find a creative way to address all that, and honestly I do think the story is a little stronger for it, being able to appeal to I guess typically you'd say my writing segment is what they call 15 plus. That's what they call it over on Comixology, but really we had to dial that back probably 2 notches to get to that all ages, to get to that sweet spot that's in the middle. So that was how it affected me. And I wanted to tell Blake too, I do have one interesting anecdote. You mentioned about being raised Catholic, and I was too. And I'll just tell you, initially I had an illustrating partner on this story who objected to the content on the basis of the supernatural, without giving away too much of the story, right? It's written in sort of a ritualistic and, creepy way. And that is the type of thing that people who are, I don't want to say it any kind of insulting way, but I hadn't considered that
Insult
perspective.
us, baby. Put it out there.
Sometimes to certain people that might find that offensive or even against what their beliefs were. And that wasn't, my case. I personally, anything that makes it a little scarier, let's go for it. Right.
Totally.
So that was my 2 cents, but through this luck of what happened, that's how I ended up meeting this new illustrating partner who's Renan Shoddy, and he's with us now on a new book.
Well, whatever got the art where it needs to be for Timothy for your story, because it's absolutely gorgeous.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that.
I was interested because when you guys talked about the nudity, and I kind of think it was small. Like, I don't notice it anymore, right? Because it's just like there's nakedness everywhere, and I'm not one that's freaked out, and I know people do get freaked out about it, and obviously for an all ages book, like you don't want titties and ass going everywhere, like I get it, you gotta keep it in a little bit of control, but I think by muting that aspect of it, just because like the female form is so human, right, and to like kind of take that gaze away from the god that you put on the page, produces like another kind of alienness and like another separation. So I think
you might be right.
Which hurts me to say, because like I never wanted to be like censorship makes something better. Like that feels really dirty, and I'm gonna have to like take a shower after we get done now, because that just is like something I never ever wanted to say. But on that note, and to kind of go where the conversation's going, there's that that adaptation and that how we're centered into these stories and what's normative and what's not. And I am very interested for Jessica and Holly, because both of your stories deal with like in a sense like adoption. We're an adoption, like we're taking this otherness like into our own life, which is very much a vibe in this anthology. And both of your stories do this on another level, and make them like I don't want to say cute in an offensive term, but it's like both of you have like eldritch horrors that are visually pleasant, and I would like snuggle them, and I would scratch underneath their chins, and I would fight a group of cloaked men to like save these animals from the travesties that they're doing right in the woods. And so
and Holly, do you want to go first, or
I'm just collecting thoughts from the past couple of questions we've had that we haven't answered. So go ahead.
Very, very much for me, and I have two different stories, but I'm focused on this story that's in this one. Is I do usually write very darkly, and so I am having a lot of fun. I wanted to do something cute, so I'm glad you wanted to snuggle the elder bears. I wanted to, I brought in Mary Shelley because I wanted to have like a dueling mythos kind of, even though she doesn't like have a whole mythos necessarily like Lovecraft. It was like, for me with my kids, they like to be scared, but they like to go to a creepy world. And so I wanted my characters who are like supernatural monster rescuers. They basically go around and find the evil humans that are doing bad things to monsters, and that monsters aren't really the real villains. We are. And I think that's very Lovecraftian, that the darkness is in us. That's what's so terrifying. We can't see it because it's here, it's inside. And so like, I wanted them just to come in and rescue. I think one of the most horrible things humans do are make animals fight each other. Yeah. So, the idea of the monsters making the Kuldahastur making Shoggoth and Cthulhu fight each other to the death, or to whatever they can do. They can't really die, so just rip each other apart for a long time. And wanted to rescue them and then make them cute. So they start out really big and scary, and then when they get rescued with an equally cute Necronomicon. Actually, they had stolen the Book of the Dead, and they call her, Nami Con Necro, and
yeah, that nickname is so freaking genius, like so good. I loved it.
Well, and just to give you, I'm glad that you loved it, because I've now done about 100 pages with these characters with the artists, because we are doing an actual graphic novel with them.
Nice.
Yeah, which I haven't talked about much. So, but this was an opportunity to work with this artist and try out these characters, and but in a side story that's not part of the bigger graphic novel. But yeah, so I don't know if that answered the question. I kind of rambled, but
I don't know. I'll buy it. That's all. Like, you got some money from Blake Morgan. I would totally buy that issue or original graphic novel or whatever you produce.
Oh, good.
I found my I have a pit bull, and I found her in the street, and she was cut up and scraped up and skin and bones, and had broke free from a chain. So like any kind of like rescue situation, which I think that's why I really latched on to both of your stories, just because like pit bulls are not the ferocious beasts that the media ever makes them out to be, right? Like they're basically pitiful. They're like just little mush monsters, right? You squish them and they lick your face. Like there's nothing scary about them. And so I really dug how both of you took that element of like this idea of what we're supposed to be scared of, and using your story and your artist to manipulate that and create feelings within your audience and your reader was really smart. I thought both of you did that really well.
Holly, I really liked yours too. I thought it was really good.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it came to me easily. Like it wasn't like a super big process or anything. My favorite Lovecraft story is Pickman's Model, and I'm obviously heavily involved in the dog rescue community. So So one of the things that I find interesting is that the ghouls that show up in Pixman's model aren't, they don't have proper names like so many of the other gods. They're not like part of the mythos. They're not famous or well known or any of that stuff. So I was like, okay, I can work with this. I can make a situation where the ghouls are the poor little trodden down ones who don't get appreciated as much, because shelter dogs are like that, and I see them every week. So,
well, first of all, not all heroes wear capes. Some just look like Holly and work with rescue dogs. So, like, all power to you. That's amazing. Question to both of you, because your artists did so much for these ideas of yours too, to make them to go from the fear factor to the squish cuddle monsters, right? Like, did you kind of let your artists just kind of run with that and kind of give them an idea, or were you guys real strict? Were you real strict and you're like, no, it's not cute enough. It's not cute enough. Wait, it's too cute. Bring it back. Pull it back. Like,
I did not have that problem at all, because my artist was Nick Turris, who actually Russell hooked me up with. And as soon as I saw his style, I was like, this is perfect. Like, he showed me this sketch of the ghoul, and I was like, that's awesome. Just put a couple little spiky teeth in the bottom, and we're good to go. So yeah. his art style was just perfect for it.
Anna is so immensely talented that she just, she did some character sketches, and she either gets me really well, or she's just really into all of this stuff as well. And she just really, honestly, she nails it almost like 99% of the time. It's like, I feel like I'm a little psychically connected to her, which is really weird because we hardly talk and she lives in Poland. But I don't know, just through the script and emailing, we seem to be able to get it. It's really great when you find an artist you don't have to you shouldn't have to micromanage. You should be able to, come together. And yeah. So same. Yeah.
For this anthology, did Russell connect people together, or did you come together with like crews? Like, did you guys have creative teams and you submitted that way, or did Russell like reach out and kind of like, put the puzzle pieces together?
I've had two different. Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. Obviously, I mentioned that I was lucky enough. Russell actually recommended a couple of artists to me, and because of the story I had in mind, Nicholas is the one that I thought would be the best. This was after I'd pitched or come up with my story, because Russell reached out to me to contribute to the anthology. So, but yeah, he did actually end up hooking me up with the artist, which is great. So.
I've done 107 stories now. 106 of them had their artist team together, and then Holly's was. I really wanted Holly to be in this anthology, so I decided to go above and beyond to like get her an artist to be in it. And I knew Nick specifically had not submitted yet, and I wanted him in it as well because I think he missed the last one after being in the first two. So, I really wanted, and it's hard, right? Because it pays badly. Like, we don't pay, anthologies don't pay well. It's across the board. It's just,
neither does my job. I still fucking clock in every day.
So I feel really uncomfortable, putting people together in that way. I figure that if they're bringing their team, they've already had that discussion. I'm very open with what the pay is, but it's I generally am I don't like that I have to pay. I doubled or tripled the pay for this anthology, and it's still crap. So it's hard for me to be go and try and convince somebody to be a part of it. But I knew Nick had already been a part of the anthology. He was very well aware of the pay structure, and Holly was submitting. So I was willing to make that connection.
I'm used to not getting paid for anything. So.
Me too.
Yeah.
So So yeah, I tend to not do it because I know if I do it, I know if I say that I'll do it, then that will be like a whole nother like full time. I'll have 500 submissions instead of like 100, and like 100's not very for as successful as this book is. The amount of submissions we get, which is like between 75 and 100, is very, very small. Like very small anthologies sometimes get 500 submissions, but because I have the team has to come together. That means they've talked already, and I don't have to do the work of connecting them. Like it's kind of the only way that I can even do this insane thing, because I don't have to then have the extra step of going to pair artist and writer, especially because there will always be like 10 times the writers as there are artists who are interested in being part of it. That's just, and like unpaired artists are much rarer than unpaired writers.
Okay.
And like for me, I, as a writer and kind of a comic publisher at this point, the first one I did with artists from my Pistol comic team, and we just wanted to do something, similar, but not as dark. So it was still dark, but we did it. But then for the second one, I wanted to work with a new artist that I wanted to do a bigger project with. And, I think it's hard, like as a writer, you really have to find your artist. It's really hard to ask somebody else to find that person for all the reasons Russell just said. Like, this is a big time commitment for an artist to do your idea. And for all you writers who can draw, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
I made a big mistake giving that up when I was 11.
Yeah, right? I make my girls go to art. I make them go to art class every Saturday. I'm like, get good at this.
I told Christian was the first one who popped in, like when I was sitting here waiting, and Christian popped in, and I was giving him shit because I was like, okay, you have like beautiful hair, beautiful house, and you're a good writer and a good drawer. I was like, get out of here. I was like, I don't even want you on my show. You're too, like, what are you even doing here? Like you're above and beyond Blake's buzz. Like I don't even know what's going on. But yeah, it's great. Like I think of people that can knock everything out of the park, and it's cool. Like, but like it's just crazy. Like to be able to be a storyteller on all those different levels, and like know structure and art and various forms and layout, just to do all that is so insane. And it's like I'm glad you exist, right? I'm glad that the superhero comic creators exist, because I love reading the stuff, but it's intense sometimes, because it's just like, wow. Like someone told me that like I'm good at talking to people, and I was like, cool. And then they're like, oh, you're a good cook too. And I'm like, okay, I'm too many good things. Like I can't, like you're putting too much pressure on me. And now I feel like I can't, like now I have expectations, and that's, I can't deal with that shit. Right. But I heard, Travis Gibb actually mentioned this last night, which was funny because I interviewed, I'm putting the podcast of Cthulhu Invades Wonderland out next Wednesday. We did our interview last night, and then I have another night of Cthulhu tonight. So it's just been old gods for 48 hours, and there's tentacles everywhere, and I don't know what's real and what isn't anymore. But Travis Gibb kind of mentioned about balancing teams in an anthology and taking that, like, micromanaging that part of it when like an artist has an idea but doesn't have a writer, and a writer has an idea but doesn't have an artist, and you kind of try and like piece that together. And I was just like, goodness.
Oh yeah. So Travis is insane at the level of, so Travis's anthology is a story. Like it goes in order, and like there's like each piece has to be in there, which makes it, like, an anthology is generally like 10% as complicated as a not book, because you have so many people and there are so many failure points, but there's also so few times that one person bailing like will destroy the anthology. Whereas for his, he's got all of the problems that have a single story, and all of the problems of an anthology, and also pairing people together, and like I've been on a lot of his live streams, and I'm like very impressed. He is not like he's able to do the thing that he did. I can't do that. Like that is an impossible. If I had come up with that idea, there's no way I would have worked with it because it's just too big, and it's too tonally one thing. And there's so many failure points, and any one of those failure points could destroy the whole project. That's just, and somehow he's pulled it off twice, and I still don't know. And I was like, our story was late for the Wonderland, and like I'm never late. And like this, we weren't late, but like we had passed the penciling and the inking deadline. We were eating up on the coloring deadline. Like we hit the coloring deadline. But like, it's a lot of pressure, that book. I do not envy him putting that together. I think there's maybe like a handful of people in the world that can do the thing that he's done these 2 times, managing just so many people and telling a cohesive story between it. I just let them do it. Like I let the creative teams like create their story. And like, I kind of like, there was a story in 2 that was like vibe check. Like they saw like these 2 stoners like ate magic mushrooms, and then they saw like Yig going through the forest, and like their whole thing was like vibe check. Like, and like that's how I feel. Like I have a vibe check of like all of these things. Like, is this story the right vibe? And like if it's the right vibe, it can come in. If it's not the right vibe, you gotta like wait like somewhere else. And I do that a lot where like I'll have 5 stories that are similar, and like just one of them is like, this one vibes with me more than this other one. So yeah, long story short, Travis is insane, and I don't know how he does the thing that he does. He explains it on every live stream where we do, and every time I'm like, how is that like doing? Like that is a level of work I have never achieved.
That's funny. Yeah, he's an animal. Like he does all he does. And he makes me feel like, I don't know if to say it makes me feel like dog shit, but he doesn't. But he does like I've recently got when I did my Buzzworthies, my best of for 2021. Him and Marcus-on Naso, who did Scouts by the Horns, like they both like co-hosted just randomly. Like it was gonna be me live streaming by myself talking about my favorite comics, and Travis and Marcus-on like both hung out with me for 3 hours. I'd like talked to Travis a couple times, but not like he'd kind of been interested in coming on the show and stuff. And so he ends up like co-hosting this award show that neither of them knew anything about. Right. And they're just like hanging out with me for 3 hours, but he's so fun. And then, so I started watching his live streams, and then I'm like, like I have a day job and a podcast and the live stream. And there are some days where I'm like, dude, I'm tired and I'm cranky and I don't want it today. And he's like, okay, that's cute. I have a day job. I have a kid. I have a wife. I have a whole fucking family. I got 2.5 Kickstarters live right now. three in my back pocket. I'm also doing like 3 live streams a week. And I'm like, man, shit, I need to get my act together. Like this is he's crazy. Like, and it's funny when I found out that we were doing both of these Cthulhu kind of deals like very close to each other, I was like, man, am I like the in between like the Cthulhu gangs, right? Like it's like gang wars and I'm this like mediary, but like no, like you're all friends and each project is really different and you're also working on each other's projects, which I thought is so cool. Which is like, who would have thought Cthulhu could bring us all together, right? Like who would have thought that tentacled weirdo brought us all together?
So an interesting story is that of all of the anthologies that have ever launched on Kickstarter in the comics category, only Travis in my book have Cthulhu in the title. And there are only 40 titles that have Cthulhu in it at all. And 6 of them are mine. 2 of them are Travis's. and 8 of them are Dirk Mannings. And like, so like, that's like half of all the Cthulhu titles that have ever been on. Now, like, there's like Miskatonic High that like is like Lovecrafty and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like with actually like titles in the description and or in at least the subtitle. So like, I thought that was really weird. But yeah, I mean, we're doing a promo. So if you back my book our book at the physical level and Travis's book at the physical level, you get a cool bookmark that's like double-sided that is half Wonderland and half Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. But yeah, man, he was in my book first, and then he got this idea, and he did.
So that's how it happened.
He did a great job. Like, I mean, he came to me and told me, like, and we talk about it very openly on the live streams that like this was like not inspired in part by Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, but like, who cares? Like, I stole my ideas from somebody else too somewhere along the way. Like, that's what that's what happens. Like, you like take and you like reimagine and you make things better, and you say, I'd really like to do this Cthulhu thing, but like, I want to tell a story set in Wonderland or Oz or like whatever the thing is. And like, it's just a kind of like open secret, especially when you're working with someone that like it's gonna seep through. Like, you know, he wasn't someone working on the sidelines. Like, he worked on the book and saw what I did and then went out and made a thing. So like, more power to him. Like, I think his concept is like killer. Like, it would kill me to do that book, but like, it is a killer concept. Like, Lovecraft plus Oz plus Wonderland, like, come on, man. Like, he's gonna do Neverland after this. Like, that is bananas to me.
I love how he gets mad that people keep sending him pitches for Neverland, and he's like, I'm not ready yet, leave me alone. I keep giving him shit. Like, I was talking in the show last night, I was like, hey, I got a Neverland idea, and he was like, stop it. And I was like, okay, sorry.
Yeah, but back onto Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, because I know
that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, it's really cool to see all of the ways that you can do all ages without it being looking like I like the CalArts art style, but like, that's what they say. Like, it all looks like Steven Universe. And like, I don't agree with that statement, but like, when you open the book, like, one of the cool things is like, hey, if you make the exact story, but like cover up the tits and ass, you can now have an all ages story. And like, hey, if you like have the same story, but like there's no blood, like it can be an all ages story. And like, you don't have to dumb down like a story to be all ages. You don't have to like make it like a certain thing. Like, you just have to like conform to very small things that will expand your audience exponentially.
I mean, I was going to say, I had no problem, and despite the last panel of Pigman's Rescue, I had no problem doing all ages, partially just because, I mean, Lovecraft himself, like, he was terrified of anything sexual. There's nothing sexual in his stories whatsoever. And there's really not a lot of violence either, not a lot of blood, because the monsters, they drive you insane, or they, you know, like, they don't chop you into little pieces. So I was like, okay, this is going to be actually pretty straightforward. Like, I mean, unless you want to throw in a couple of swear words, you know, that's just my experience. I had no problem with the all ages thing.
One of your stories, I can't remember which one it was, but like someone screams fuck, but it's just fine. That's it.
That was me.
That was you? Okay.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every volume, they think they're gonna slip something by me, and they just don't slip things by me. Like, especially because the book started out with like, I mean, my books are violent. Like, Ichabod is like a very violent book that is absolutely not all ages appropriate. So they're like, Russell does Ichabod, so like, how strict is he gonna be? And I'm like, hella strict. So hella strict.
I knew how strict Russell was gonna be. I turned that F into an A from the beginning, because I was on the second book, And having published my own stuff for the last 10 years, having gone from a callow freelancer with no respect whatsoever for my editors, having no idea the mountain of work they had to do, and then becoming the guy who had to pay the checks, really like having a come to God moment and realize what a bastard I was as a young man. And being like, oh, my editors were great. They put up with me. I was a piece of junk. And so then when you're publishing your own work, one of the things that happened was like, if you know the Red Star, you know that basically it's the panel borders are just, it's the Wild West. There's no, it's all montage and there's no, it's the opposite of Alan Moore's Watchmen with Dave Gibbons, right? It was just like grids and like old timey comics. And so last year when I worked on the book, I'm like, I from this momentum of publishing for 10 years, the panels were everywhere. And Russell, it was Chris actually, she was like, listen, you've got to fix these borders. Your borders. I was like, what? Come on. She's like, no, you don't understand. It's very strict. It's this anthology. It's all about, it's got to be like this. I was like, okay. And so I did it, and I had such a great time doing it. It was incredible for me to see the usefulness of the metered storytelling. I had never really done it that hardcore before. And so when you look at Cthulhu Town, it is literally the Watchmen Gibbons 9 grid. It's almost all 9 grids, and I love telling stories that way. You can get a lot more story told in a short amount of time, and all my drawings were shrunk down into these little boxes, and it was just a blast. So thanks again, Russell.
I love 9 grids.
Yeah,
I'm very, very happy that everyone finally got the message that you have to have white borders. That's like. Yeah. I have like 9 rules or 10 rules that I tell everyone, and like one of them is like white borders. It has to be white, and that is because everyone does has the wrong size when they send it to me, and it makes it very easy if it's white borders to fix the book so that it's the right size. Every time, at least 20% of the pages are the wrong size, and this is my biggest tip to people who edit anthologies: tell them white borders and white borders only. Don't say black borders, because black borders make it very hard to print through Ingram and other places, because they don't use black paper. They just use white paper, and then it's all ink. So white borders allow you to like print everywhere and give it consistency and give people. So I think that like the structure breeds creativity. Like so many creators think that it's like the rules stifle you, but to me the rules are everything. The rules are everyone has the same 80 to 90% of story, and it's in that 15% that like true creativity happens. I was listening to Frank Gehry, and he was talking about architecture and specifically the Disney Opera House in downtown Los Angeles. And he was saying like everyone has the same rules. Like they all have gravity and acoustics and zoning boards and bathroom and like they have all of these, like 80% of the structure is the same. 80 to 85% of the structure. It's the 15% that like make it, that make creativity. Like that's the 15% you have to wiggle room, and like that tracks with my experience like in writing, doing comics and doing novels. Like there are rules, there are chapters, there are breaks, there are characters. There's all these things you must have. There are genres, and you have to have, there are rules inside each genre, and like you have to follow them unless you break them, and you have some flexibility inside of that, but there's a lot of rules, and I have found just so much variety. If you open, there's not one story there's a couple of stories that are probably very similar, because Lovecraft definitely had a weird person goes to weird town, finds weird cult, and then madness ensues kind of structures. So like there are several that are like that, but like they're almost all very different, and every story had to be 2, 4, 6, or 8 pages. They all had to be all ages, and they all had to have white borders. And aside from those like 3 big ones, there were not very many rules. But in that, you had 200 plus people jamming out and making a different things. Oftentimes, like Christian's and Jessica's also were very different from the first and second anthology. So even with the same constraints, the same creators made very different choices between book one, between the first, if they came back between books. And so, structure is awesome, and it gives you the basis for which to build something truly unique. But if you don't start with some basis, you're just going to end up with muck, and no one's going to know what you're doing.
That's how Blake's Buzz started, and it's just a bunch of muck.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's still there. Well, suckers, you guys spent 2 hours with me. You hung out in the muck, and I appreciate all of you. This was really cool. This was I feel like we touched a lot of basis on both why people should give your anthology money. Even though
thank you.
It's technically got all the money it needs, but it needs more, right? With the old gods are hungry for cash, and we need to feed them.
Yeah. So right now we're trying to determine the print order number, and that's going to be determined by how big. So literally the chances of you ordering this book later diminish or are greatly increased by how many orders we have now. But yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like it's a little bit harder to get up in the morning and like get real excited about like going to doing marketing when like we're $2,000 over funding. And I get it. Like this is a lot easier to pull people together when like you're close to funding or you haven't made money. You haven't made the money. Now we've made the money. And so I get it. This is our second most popular book of all time for Wannabe Press. It surpassed the second volume. Only the first volume is more successful. So like, I mean, I think you should give us money because it's a great book. Plus, you'll get a cool wrestling story inside along with all of the other stuff. The reason I say that is because the previous 2 volumes, the only flack that I really got was the cover doesn't match any interior stories. So if you're looking at this one being like, I don't know, like Russell fooled me twice. Like there is a wrestling story inside. Blake can attest. It is Cthulhu versus Zeus. It takes place three places across the course of the anthology, and I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. Wrestling and comics go together like peanut butter and chocolate.
It's so weird, right? Like I as a kid, I was into wrestling. I've fallen out of it, and I know nothing about it. But it's crazy how the blend of wrestling and comic fans, like it's just there. It's like ingrained in both cultures. It's interesting how they come together. So like I think your idea was both very fun. The action was good. The art was fun. I dug. I won't. You need to know who wins because it may surprise you. Because it was a really good. It was a really good match, and I love that you broke it apart into the kind of three pieces throughout the anthology, and we keep coming back to this like iconic battle of gods, right? And as we've mentioned tonight, like a lot of these stories are deal with our own battle with gods.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And, yes. And depression and anxiety and grief and all of the things, and it's just. I mean, it's you'll get stories that are from cute to scary and everything in between. And I think it thematically holds up as like a 1, 2, 3 volume as well. Better than I ever thought it would. And that's very small amount me. A lot of it is Chris, my co-editor. A lot of that is, and then most of it is the wonderful creators that I hope you guys will check out because there's some really all 4 of these are killer stories. That I guess 5 are killer stories. But there's just so many really cool stories throughout the book that both have a very Lovecraftian feel and have a wildly different feel that you probably never thought you would see in a Lovecraft anthology that are like funny or silly or poignant or just like mythologically based. Everything from the origin of the universe, of the Lovecraft universe that Eric Young did in the first anthology, all the way to like the end of the universe that and kind of everything in between. So I do hope that you'll check it out, especially because these creators really they've really brought their A game, and I'm so appreciative of them, and I'm so appreciative of them coming to doing press as well, when really only one of them has something launching right now. No, I think Holly has one too, right? You have a book that's out in stores now,
it
right?
came out 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
What is it?
Last Song from Black Mask. It's a big dramatic rock and roll comic.
Thank you.
Awesome. And, well, I think that's a good segue. We're at 2 hours, and I know you can only deal with me for so long, and I appreciate everybody hanging out. But this is we've talked about how great this anthology is, and if we did anything tonight, and the people that were live that came in and talked and commented, like, thank you for hanging out. For the people that watch this in the next couple days, like, go to Kickstarter, back this. It's worth your money. It's fun. It's a wild ride of ups and downs and beautiful art that it changes on every page. The writing styles from everybody is there's no weak stories. There's just strengths in every panel, and it's varied, and it's so cool. It's a wild trip to experience, and it's going to be a really nice hardcover to hold in your hands, and it's going to be worthy of a spot on your shelf. And I think we've covered that, and everybody knows that. So this is where I'm just going to go around real quick, and I'm going to ask everybody, like, where we find you, where's the best place to follow you, where do we buy your stuff, where do we become friends, where do we share gifts and stupid internet stuffs with each other. Like, Timothy, let's start with you, bud. Like, where are you at, where we find you, where do we buy your stuff? Like, I need more of your books, I need more of your stories, I need that in my life. So.
Thank you for saying. First off, thanks for having me on the show, and I'm glad for the chance to do any press, so thank you to Russell, and nice to meet the new people who I'm meeting tonight. I'll try and reach out to everybody and find y'all. Right now, I'm also promoting a book on Kickstarter. If you look for me, I'm under the Water Wars. You'll find me. It's our post-apocalyptic sci-fi comic series that's taking America by chemical storm. And also, if you like that style of artwork, it is the same partner that I mentioned, which is sort of like a classically illustrated graphic novelish type heavy metal looking story. My name's Timothy Fling. I'm on Facebook. That's really the easiest way to find me now, is on Facebook or on Kickstarter. There's my 2 big ones. So if you want to look me up there, again, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Hey, I've appreciated this fling we've had tonight. So.
Good.
That's why you guys are the writers, and I'm the illiterate podcast host.
You're doing fine.
Holly, how about you? You mentioned you had something from Black Mask, like
yes. Thank you for having me on. This was super fun. I do have a it came out a couple weeks ago, but you can get it, through Amazon or Barnes and Noble or whatever. The Collected Last Song. It's a book I did for Black Mask that took 7 years to complete. Wow. Each issue is 65 pages. So It was kind of a big deal. So yeah, you can pick that up at
so the trade's out, like
the trade's out, yeah,
and finally. That's good. That's going to be a nice size trade, like that.
Yeah,
that's going to be an investment.
Pages.
You're gonna sit with that and enjoy it for a while. That's cool.
It's a lot of story for your buck. So, and also because I somehow seem to excel at parodies of horror authors. I was part of the Edgar Allan Poe Stifter of Death anthology that runs at Ahoy Comics.
Yeah.
That trade should be coming out this year as well. I did a crazy story with Greg Scott, who's awesome. And yeah, you can find me on social media, or you can just easily you can just myname.com, hollyinterlandi.com just has all my social media links right on there. So
Black Mask and Ahoy and Cthulhu, like bringing the heat. That's awesome. I'm excited. I'm gonna have to check that out. That's dope. Very, very cool to talk to you tonight. I appreciate you coming on, and I dug your story, and I love the last panel. And I won't spoil anything because I almost did it earlier, and I think I almost gave Russell a heart attack. And so I'll stop there and say that last page was great. And so fun, and anytime you want to come back on Blake's Buzz, like you and your dog are more than welcome. Would love to have you. Jessica,
just only if I bring my dog.
You can come by. It's fine. Like if you don't bring the dog, it's okay. But if you both wanted to come, it'd be all right. No, I love Black Mass. They do some gnarly shit. I'm really stoked. I'm gonna check that out. I'm excited.
Awesome! Thank you so much. This is fun.
Hey, any excuse for me to buy more comics, right? Like I don't have enough. I got to keep getting them. The stack ever progresses. Jessica, thank you for coming on tonight as well.
Thank you for having me. I had a really, really great time meeting everybody. Actually, this has been a great conversation. You can find me at wickedtreepress.com. Also Wicked Tree Press kind of across the platforms. But you can always go to my website and find any of that. I do have a book coming out. I write science fiction. I have a YA sci-fi dystopian series, Plastic Girl, which is basically set in the wake of a climate apocalypse, and a young girl finds something out on her lake that's alive, that's not supposed to be alive. And they are like the next step in evolution. And so Plastic Girl Extinction is coming out on April 22nd, the second book. And I have a event with the library, and I'm really excited about it. So that's all happening, but it'll be on my website and everything like that. So, and then
you have a press. You're not just a writer. You have like a press.
I'm trying. Yes. So I have the first thing I published was Pistol, which was a very dark adult comic about sex trafficking. It was a supernatural superhero who fights against sex trafficking. So it was dark, and it's actually still in progress. I haven't been publishing it. I'm waiting till it's all complete. So I have 25 more pages on that. And then this new project I have with Anna, and I'm hoping to do an anthology after all this learning I've been doing at some point, but not yet. And then hopefully I get to publish people's short stories eventually, but I'm not ready to publish other people's books yet, because that's a whole other thing. So,
hey, baby steps.
That's the goal, man. That's the goal. So wickedtreepress.com. Yeah.
Very cool. So, you mentioned this series that you're going to wait till it's all done, or you're going to launch like a multi-book Kickstarter and just shut the fucker down and get like 30 million in a day. Like, is that
well, Pistol is interesting because it was my first attempt at a comic, because I came from the film world, and so I kind of got this artist team together, and we all were learning it together, and so it's just taken a bit longer than like my newer project. That's much quicker because I figured out how to do it and go through the whole process. So as soon as it's finished, I am going to release it. I think I'm going to release it as single issues and then a trade, but I haven't decided, so I don't want to promise. And you can find Pistol. Issue 0 and issue 1 are out. So
cool.
I had to pause basically, but I'm not afraid.
What? Don't forget, it's with an I.
Oh, with an I. Pistol with an I. There's a flower theme tying in.
Oh.
She's a Latino superhero, and she basically has been victimized herself and then kind of went dark with it. So
I like how you keep reminding it. You're like, I'm doing this and it gets dark. Like I love it. Get brutal.
It does get dark, but there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. But a lot of and same thing with Plastic Girl. It gets dark because it is about the climate apocalypse, but there's hope and there's cool creatures in it. So
is that why it's fiction? Because there's hope? Because like I feel like the climate apocalypse is a little too real. Like is there hope at the end of the tunnel? I don't know.
Well, I mean, they are like everyone's dead and they're building out of the wasteland, so it's a little like afterwards.
It's dark in a different way.
Exactly.
Hey, sounds good to me. I love dark. I always say my number one reason for picking up like a movie or something is if it has the word devastating on it.
Yes, right. Yes.
I'm gonna watch that.
Right. And I the only time that's a mistake for me is when it's folk horror, because usually halfway through a folk horror I'm like, I am really devastated. Don't know if I wanted to be this devastated and this confused at the same time, but yeah, no.
Well, speaking of devastated and confused, Promiscuous Time Traveler has been here for the whole 2 hours. Thank you, sir. That is amazing. We appreciate you and your phenomenal handle, which I'm continuously jealous of. That's Jessica. That sounds amazing. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to look all of you up and look at more books that I have to read and embrace the darkness of all your narratives. Christian, we're going to go to you next.
All right.
Obviously, which is why, I said your name. That's weird. You make me nervous. I don't know why. Your spin rack and your hair, and you work for Marvel. You're a fascinating, beautiful creature, sir, and I'm just trying to figure you out.
Right on, man.
What do you got going on? Where do we find you?
I'm happy to say that you can go to just shatter the mystery by going to my Instagram at Cthulhu Town, or also Twitter at Cthulhu Town 1923, because there was already Cthulhu Town on Twitter. Facebook at Christian Gossett's Cthulhu Town. So I'm all Cthulhu Town all the time. So that's my weekends. My days are spent fighting crime, doing awesome stuff for Marvel. I'm having such a great time working with them. And my weekends are Cthulhu Town, and it's a wonderful thing to spend one's weekend doing when you love telling stories. So yeah, Cthulhu Town 23 on Twitter, Instagram at Cthulhu Town, where the fun thing about the Instagram is I'm going to recommend that one just because you get sneak previews of the Cthulhu Town story that'll be in Cthulhu's Hard to Spell. So no lettering, no spoilers or nothing, but you get to see the work and the beautiful color by my buddy Paul Tobin, who works at What a Workshop in New Zealand.
He also has a Substack.
Awesome.
Yes, I also have a Substack where you can hear me talk about why I did Cthulhu Town and stuff like that, and that'll be continuing as well. And that's kind of like the fun, play-by-play of the Kickstarter, and talks about Cthulhu Town, and it'll continue to talk about the story after the campaign is over. The successful campaign.
Can I add, I'm sure you can't talk a lot about Marvel stuff. Are you involved on the comic side, or are you working on the cinema side?
I'm working on an animated series with a really, really, really fantastic director whose name I can't say.
Yeah, of course.
It's an animated show on Disney Plus, and it's a dream come true. It's so fascinating. It's so wonderful. The team is great. The experience has been fantastic. It's just a blast. I went to Marvel from a couple of years during the pandemic, working at my buddy Jay Oliva's place, Lexinotis Animation Studio. Jay Oliva's a fantastic story artist. Did all the Zack Snyder stuff and just worked for years and years and years. Great guy, and started his own studio, little cool pirate ship of animation, Lexinotis, and went from there to Marvel this year, and just having a great time. So no, I can't talk about it. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Hey, a new Marvel animated series is still cool. And when you blow up and get fucking huge and make $1 million, I can be like, he was on Blake Buzz. That's dope. Right. No, and that goes for all of you. Feel free to get famous and credit your fame and fortunes.
I will attribute it directly toward this interview.
Yeah, your reunion.
And last but not least, the man holding the puppet strings, the man who took the tentacle Endeavor for the third successful ride, Russell. Hey, bud. Thank you for making this happen. Russell and I started talking over some internet drama, and this beautiful flower happened out of that pile of shit that happened online one day. And I'm so glad that happened, because I got to meet all these amazing people, and I got to check out Cthulhu Is Hard to Spell, and just, good things can happen on Twitter. Who would have thought? Crazy. But where can we find you, sir? And do you have anything else? In up your sleeve that you want to shout out other than this current Kickstarter?
Well, I mean, I have somewhat of a library of books that I've put out over my career. These are all my books that I've either edited or written, or both. And so Cthulhu is Hard to Spell is the one that we're focused on now. I also have a universe called the Godsverse Chronicles, which is our biggest universe. It's 12 novels and 3 graphic novels, including Katrina Hates the Dead, Pixie Dust, and Black Market Heroine. We're exclusively putting those books on Kickstarter until that series is over, which will be in June. So June, like end of May, beginning of June. I forget the exact day, but it's basically a guide where a world where all gods are real and like they just kind of suck, and it takes you from like epic fantasy like 1,000 years ago all the way to 13,000 years in the future over 12 books and those graphic novels. The thing that people probably know me from best, if they don't know Cthulhu, is through my graphic novel Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, which is about a psychopath that escapes a mental asylum and becomes a monster hunter, but doesn't know if he's killing monsters, humans, or it's all in his head the whole time. We're coming out with the 4th and final volume of that book in September. So if you like Cthulhu, a lot of people get both things. So like they've been kind of in tandem for most of my career, especially since we brought Ichabod back. And since I'm ending Cthulhu and Ichabod together, it kind of works for like the synergy of just like I opened the portal together and I'm closing it together within like 6 months of each other. So that's done. It's going to be 16 issues when it's over. And then I don't know what's next as far as comics go. I know what's next as far as novels go, but I have no idea what's next when it comes to comics. So we're going to find that out together, but you can check out all of my work at russellnohelty.com. You can go to CthulhuIsHardToSpell.com, and that'll lead you straight to the Kickstarter. You can pick up a 90-page preview of all 3 books on the Kickstarter page as well for free. Just sign up for that mailing list, and you get basically to check out all 3 volumes. I give something like 30 pages in each of each volume when you check it out, and you can see if it's your jam. I mean, you're going to get cute to scary and everything in between. If you have a liberal definition of horror or enjoy horror comedy or like Shaun of the Dead, kind of like that kind of weird offbeat, like I think you're gonna dig this, but you have to come with a very liberal definition of Lovecraft's mythos and be willing to like kind of be along for the ride. And if you can do that, I think you're going to have a good time. I'm very happy that like we've had so many awesome creators on board who have looked at the series and been like, yes, that is something. Even though I love horror and I want to be part of this, which shows me that like there's a place for it in the overall mythos and horror sci-fi universe. So yeah, russellnohelty.com to see all my stuff. Cthulhu is Hard to Spell to check out the book. You can see all of our stuff coming. We have a lot of stuff coming this year still, even after this.
Well, that is exciting. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. I have given you 5 very talented writers who have plenty of stuff to check out. You need to follow these people. You need to give them their money. You need to buy their books. You need to back this Kickstarter. What's money? What are you going to do with it when you're gone? You got to get rid of it. Money's terrible. As soon as you get it, you got to give it away. That's the point. Get some cool comics. Have some solid reads. Everybody, this was so awesome. I'm so excited for all of you. Like, you're all great people and you deserve all the wonderful things that I hope that are coming your way. Like, work hard. You all work hard. You're killing it. You're telling good stories. In these trying, weird times, it's good stories that make us sleep better at night, even if they make a nightmare every now and then, right? Like we need horror, we need sci-fi, we need that weirdness, and I think all of you are amazing for giving us these distractions, and I am so incredibly grateful to get to talk to each one of you tonight. And again, like, thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, back Cthulhu is Hard to Spell Volume 3. It's very cool. It's got some really awesome stuff in it. And follow these awesome people and get to know their other works, because it sounds like I'm gonna do it. Like, do what your friendly podcast host does, right? Like, let's fucking do it. Let's get weird. Everybody, we did it. You came on Blake's Buzz and you survived.
Yay. Thank you. Great to meet you.
It's great to meet all of you. Thank you so much.
This was awesome. Thanks, guys.
So fun.
Thank you.
Yep.
Everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thanks.